So let's look at the transfer applicant prompt that I usually use, and I get it from the UC Admissions website. It's one that I noticed that a lot of institutions use, some variation of it. So the prompt is essentially, what is your intended major? Discuss how your interest in the subject developed and describe any experience you have had in the field, such as volunteer work, internships and employment, participation in student organizations and activities, and what you have gained from your involvement. And the most important aspect of the writing prompt, any writing prompt you get, whether you are a transfer applicant, a freshman applicant, or you've already been admitted into the institution and you are writing based upon a prompt. You want to look at your coordinating conjunctions. And your coordinating conjunctions are your fanboys. So those are your for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. And so you see here we have two coordinating conjunctions, the same one, of course, two coordinating conjunctions within the applicant prompt, and here. And what that suggests to you is that it requires you to do two things. It requires you to discuss, and it requires you to describe. And then it also requires you to tell us what you have gained from your involvement. So we're going to get into a bit of an analysis of this prompt. So let's look at the analysis. What is your intended major? This is the anchor. This is not asking you what your field is in terms of your professional field yet. So if your major is accounting, it's not asking you that you want to become an accountant. That may be implied, that may be obvious, but you have to tailor the personal statement based upon the writing prompt. And so what is your intended major? My major is accounting, not accountant. My major is business. And you can also offer a specialization. So my major is business with a specialization in accounting, or my major is business with a specialization in finance, or something like that, right? But that is your anchor. That's why when you write a paper in an English class, you want to really look at the writing prompt, the anchor of the prompt, because that's going to help to inform what your thesis will be. So what is your intended major? So let's discuss and describe. So for example, discuss how your interest in the subject developed, and describe any experience you have had in the field, such as volunteer work, internships, employment, participation in student organizations and activities. So discuss, there is a difference between discuss and describe. Discuss is basically suggesting a conversation. You're going to have a conversation with the committee. And usually you have an admissions person from the main admissions department. Then you may have another person, maybe like a registrar, and then you will have someone from your major department there, a faculty member. It could be the chair of the department as well. But how you speak, or how you speak within your writing, really tells that admissions team, especially the major department faculty, if you know what you're talking about. If you're talking about, I just want to save the world, we all know that you're not going to be able to do that within a 4-year program. It could be something that you gain through coursework to help you sort of support that objective, but saving the world is too large of a goal. It's too big of a goal that has no real limits to it. And you do have to put limits on yourself. You can't save the world, right? You can save an aspect of the world, say like you want to resolve homelessness, or you want to resolve food hunger or something like that. But you would die trying to go from continent to continent, country to country, state to state, to try to save the world, right? So you would have to focus your efforts. Your efforts may be, I'm interested in immigration. I would like to do something with the Dreamers in DACA, and I would like to help students who are interested in education with scholarship money or something like that, or some kind of internship or whatever. So that means I'm going to have an organization that helps immigration or something. And so eventually I'm going to, right now my major is pre-law, and then eventually I'm going to get into becoming a lawyer and focusing my efforts on immigration, right? So then what are you doing? Now you want to discuss how your interest in the subject developed. Well, I had a friend who had immigration problems. We were long-term friends, and I had to lose her because she was deported, and all she wanted to do was go to college or something like that. And I couldn't help her, and I felt helpless. And that's how my interest really developed. Of course, I also spent time in her country, and I just saw among the people who were interested in traveling to America for a better for better opportunities and education, and all of that has really informed why I should go into immigration. And then, of course, I did some time as a volunteer. So discussing is basically having that discussion that people generally know about. You really cannot discuss something within a personal statement that is not sort of a mimicry of what people already know about that particular thing. Now, you may come into the field and do something different later, but when you are initially creating or responding to the applicant prompt, you want to make sure that they understand that what you are discussing reveals your research into the field and what you would have to do, and how you will how will you get that done, right? Understanding and suggesting to the admissions committee that that even though you have the eagerness to want to save the world, you know that you can only do that one town at a time, one city at a time, one organization at a time. So they want to hear your limits as well. So then you want to move into that experience you have. So if you are so interested in immigration, what have you been doing to date, right? Have you been helping people on your own fill out applications and things like that? You have friends who are foreigners, and they are asking you for help with a particular application, right? How do I fill out that application? So have you been almost like a mini consultant, a mini sort of person who has sat down, help to explain what's going on? You can read some of the criterion that they have to adhere to. You've looked at a few policy documents, and somehow it just comes naturally to you to be able to explain it. It's like you pick it up. And so that's also important too. Your volunteer work, your internships, your employment. It doesn't make any sense that you want to get into the medical field, for example, and have never volunteered at a hospital. And usually hospitals don't require you to do 8-hour shifts or anything like that. They require you to do a certain amount of hours per week for maybe 1 to 2 years. But you saying that you want to become something and you've never taken the time to volunteer or participate, if you want to get into accounting and you are on student government, it makes sense for you to become a treasurer or any person dealing with the money on that committee. So it does make a big difference that you say you want to become something, and you have taken the time to embrace it in some form of fashion, volunteer working or something like that. And you got to be able to describe that. So we're not asking for a list of experiences. You take 1 to 3 experiences and explore it. So you discuss how your interest in the subject developed, or the career, the major, the field, and then now you take 1 to 3 experiences of that particular interest and explore it. So that's discuss and describe. And what you have gained from your involvement. And this is learning. What have you learned from engaging, which is your process, and then engagement, which is your progress? And so there's that second and there. You have that second and there. And you want to take some time, because what is it that you didn't know that you now know as a result of being involved? Okay, I didn't really know that people, I thought that people were homeless because they didn't want to work. That's the obvious statement people always make. I think it's a very biased, prejudiced type statement, very prideful statement, but it could also be a true statement. What I realize is that there are some people who are homeless due to eviction or due to losing their jobs or something like that. As a result of this pandemic, you're going to get a lot of folks who are being evicted and losing jobs and not having anywhere to go because of the way the pandemic changed the economy. You can't say that person is lazy, because things are changed as a result of the pandemic. So that's an example of something. If you wanted to get into homelessness, homeless advocacy, and you are thinking about those particular statements you might make, to yourself, not really understanding what the problem is, and then you decided to take a course, and then that course led to some sort of experience, volunteering or something like that, and then you gain new insight that some people are homeless not necessarily because of eviction, but because they were paroled, and so once they paroled and they don't have any real job experience, it's hard for them to find a job. Then they are moving from place to place, right? Because they may be having issues or something like that. Some people are very impatient if you don't hurry up and find a job within a week. But now you have this record and it's hard for you to find. So there are a number of reasons, and the engagement process really suggests that you need to get involved with what you think is a problem to see what is going on, so you can define it better in your head. And then you think about solutions to the problem and how have you contributed to that. So this is a very important prompt, because it's not just the transfer application prompt from community college to university setting, but it has very much life implications as well. It has career implications. And so that's what I want you to think about.